Anyway, I wanted to get into this video about skin bleaching. We got light versus brown. Versus dark. So there's three. There's light, brown, and dark. Which apparently there's always been light skin, brown skin, and dark skin. Apparently, I don't count because I'm mixed. So, anyway.
This conversation really needs to center on why is it societally that being lighter skinned has very clear material advantages.
Well, okay, in the future.
That was far.
A lot of pink today. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Alexis Johnson. I'm a correspondent with Vice News, and I'll also be acting as our moderator for today's panel. We first want to put out the disclaimer that, we've done our best to get you all here today of different ethnicities, different shades, different skin tones to talk about this topic, but we realize we can't represent everybody in this discussion, okay? Today we're going to be discussing a topic that, as a brown-skinned Black woman moving throughout the world, it's something that I think about a lot. It's something that I hear being discussed a lot, both in real life, online, in the media. Today we're here to talk about colorism. What is colorism and how do you define it?
Hi, my name is Koa, and I identify as biracial. I think about colorism as a distinct hierarchy that is anchored in a proximity to whiteness.
Interesting. I think colorism is internalized racism. I'm Calvin West, and I am an American.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Maya. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm Black. So I actually think that colorism existed before racism, and the fact that historically, for example, if you look at Europe or Asia, like serfs, peasants, people who were in the lower classes had to work and toil in the sun, and those who were royalty or aristocrats or whatever tend to be lighter skin, and so there has historically been a privileging of lighter skin over darker skinned individuals, but I think that with the onset of...
I've heard that before, and I thought it was really funny because there's this scene in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Where the guys are, they're kind of going through the, I don't want to say the ringer, but they're sort of going through the whole, events of the movie. And a lot of the events, they're like in the sun and they eventually get like a super, super deep tan. And they end up showing up at a Klan rally and they think that they're like basically black. Okay, now.
Listen, Tommy, I got a plan.
Color guard is colored. Who made them the color guard?
Because of how much of a tan that they have. Or maybe Mexican. Either way, not white. And so they end up having to like run away from the Klan, I think. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is a pretty good movie. I don't know. That instantly came to my mind though when she said like toiling in the sands and in the soils, and you get a good deep tan.
Of global white supremacy fueled by European colonialism, 1492 onward, it was then absorbed into racism.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. I identify as Iranian. As someone who's from like an Asian country that wasn't technically colonized, we even have colorism in that idea even.
Do you love how she was like, why is the white bitch agreeing with me? What the fuck did I say for her ass to fucking think she could just come in and agree with my ass? I'm like, okay, calm down.
Country that wasn't technically colonized, we even have colorism in that idea even without people coming in and telling us that. So it's almost like a preconceived idea that's in our heads.
I'm a mixed race Puerto Rican, and in the Latina community, you can understand it very much as a caste system where there is no shame to address darker skinned people by slurs.
Okay. There are personal consequences for colorism. There are also systemic consequences, and colorism has implications for public health, beauty, and all sorts of things in society.
Okay. So you said that you feel like it is internalized racism?
The blackest experience any Black person can have is another Black person telling them that they aren't Black. And that is something that happens to lighter-skinned Black people because there's this idea and that I've lived a different life because I'm a lighter skin. And that, to me, is the most anti-Black thing you can do to anybody.
Maya, what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, I saw you had a little bit of a reaction there.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
So I think often when lighter-skinned people talk about experiencing bias from darker-skinned people, I think that my first thought is just like, remember that colorism is an ism. And like when something has that ISM, it means institutional power plus prejudice. Darker-skinned people as a class of people do not have the ability, the institutional power to, for example, put you in prison for longer sentences because of being lighter skinned or, you know, have.
Well, you don't get put in prison for being lighter skinned. Black people get put in prison, just period. So if you come across as black, even if you're light-skinned black, you get a lot longer in prison for the same crimes as white people. So it's not like if you're lighter, you get fucking lesser sentences than if you're darker. I've never heard that before. Yeah, I've never heard of like, oh, light skin, you get like, colorism is different, but it's like black people all get fucked in the legal system. That's just period.
Having less access to employment, there's actual statistics where like a darker skinned person with a master's degree usually has less employment opportunities or is less employable than a lighter skinned person who has a bachelor's. And it's not to say.
No, dude, all these studies are done with black and white people, not darker and lighter people. Black and white. Are you referring to white people as light skinned? What if she's that woke? She's just like, no, there are light-skinned brothers. It's like, bro, okay, hold on. Maybe she sees the whole world as lighter and darker shades of black. What does she see Asian people as? There are tan yellow brothers. I don't know.
Say that like bullying is like, I know that hurts. Like it's like personal sentiment. I know that actually feels bad. But I think that it's important to remember when we're talking about whether racism or colorism or anything that's an ism, that there's an element of institutional power that is added on to the prejudice.
I do feel like when darker-skinned people express their frustration to lighter-skinned people, that their lives might be different, harder. I think you sort of have to acknowledge your privilege, you know, or else it's very ignorant. Even though we're both black.
What specifically does that mean? Like, I've had experiences in my life that have not been great, and I can assume that it's because of the color of my skin, right? We talk about these ideologies, right, which I think we get lost in sometimes, and we have to just bring it back to reality of like, well, let's talk about your situation for a second. How has it affected you specifically? And the answers that you get are, I didn't get an apartment, I didn't get a job, I didn't get that promotion, which happens to everybody, right? They can always talk about somebody else and what's happened in history, but they can't talk about their own lived experiences. And that's important.
I have plenty lived experiences. Sure. I mean, we could go from like, for me, I'm in the beauty industry, the beauty world, so I get invited to influencer events, and if I look around and I'm the darkest black person, there's still a problem there. You know what I mean? That's a perfect example of that. And you might not realize it, but white people, lighter skin people.
Bruh, you said your example was like you go to beauty events and that you're the darkest person there. Like, you got into the event, though. He's like, I'm outside the event. I'm waiting. They said I can't come in. Like, do you see the difference? There's like a difference there. I'm just saying, like,
people, they might be more willing to approach you because you are of lighter skin. That's another, sure, personal thing that, have you realized that?
Yes, I can acknowledge that may be the thing. Here's the other thing that happens. The other side of that, the other perspective on that is that I've done a lot of things in the acting world. I've missed roles because I'm not dark enough. And there's a lot of black people who don't know that. They have no idea that your skin tone is actually highly sought out for.
But I feel like that's acting, you know, they're looking to fill a specific role, whereas if you're just applying for a job, you know, a lighter skinned person might get that opportunity over a darker skinned person.
I get so many personal testimonials from young, dark-skinned black girls who are very detailed about how colorism affects their life. So obviously colorism is a systemic issue, but I think an important part of it is the personal battle.
Here's the thing. I think colorism is systemic in that it is instilled within us, right? One of the Willie Lynch, and if you guys don't know who Willie Lynch is, he was a fucking lovely man who was known for breaking slaves properly. And his slaves would never run away. They would never rebel against him. And a lot of the things that he would do is, you know, cruel. But they were done for a reason. And one of the things that was done was impregnating black women with lighter babies, like basically white mixed with black babies, and then giving those babies who were still slaves a little bit special treatment, right? And what that would do is that would start up hostility. It would start up a sort of like a battle between the darker and the lighter slaves, right? This is all Willie Lynch. And he says in the Willie Lynch, well, I forget what they're fucking called. They're like the laws or the fucking, they're not tapes because they didn't have tapes back then. But like it says in there that this will continue for generations after generation, right? Where, you know, we still come after each other because people are darker than other people. So yeah, we can go into Willie Lynch one day, but it's fucking rough. That might be a kick stream because I might get banned because there's a lot of N-words and there's a lot of like how to beat humans and how to break humans. He talks about finding the biggest slave, right, tying him to 4 horses and then fucking splitting him in half after beating him and setting him on fire, of course, in front of everybody else so that they know who the fucking boss is. Yeah, so a lot of this shit still seeps into culture, into our culture and into our people today, which is why you still have people arguing over who's darker or who's lighter, right? When you have fine ass dark, beautiful fucking women, and you also have some fine ass light and some fine ass brown skinned women, like they all fucking come fine. Like I don't understand the difference in colorism. Now, in society, there could be something in terms of people being treated a little differently. But I think in terms of a white racist person, I very much think he's not going to hire a light-skinned black person, just like he's not going to hire a dark-skinned black person, just like he's not going to hire a fucking brown-skinned. Any black person isn't getting hired. Even if you have a black-sounding name, you're probably not getting hired. So I think a systemic issue is not a thing in terms of colorism. I think the only thing that's systemic is, again, the hatred that was instilled within us. You know, that was systemically instilled within our people. But I don't think the government is colorist. I think the government can be a little racist, but it's all black people. It's not just light-skinned black people. It's not just dark-skinned black people. It's all black people. So, yeah.
Like young black girls endure. These girls are being bullied. Some are as young as 14, 13 years old, having really like mental health crises in middle school. Like there's also so much research about how colorism shows up like systemically. Like there's research on public health and the different health outcomes darker skinned black people have as opposed to lighter skinned black people. And there's one about pulse oximeters like being used during COVID and how the devices have a harder time registering darker skin. And you can imagine the implications for that. And we know that the black community has been disproportionately affected by COVID in terms of like deaths. I don't think that evidence can be divorced from the anecdotes, you know, because the anecdotes just supplement that evidence. They help put that evidence into context. And I'm so like fascinated by like the growing like scholarship around colorism, because I think it's about time people treat colorism with the same seriousness they treat racism.
Oh my God forbid. All right. No.
Mar, what are your thoughts?
God, remember when all those fucking light-skinned people were free and the dark-skinned people were slaves? Shit, I remember that. No. Okay, it was installed within us in slavery for us to go against each other. For the light-skinned blacks to go against the dark-skinned blacks. But guess what? We're all fucking black. We're fighting amongst each other while the fucking slave owners are fucking laughing and drinking fucking lemonade. I mean, that was literally the case back in the day, and it seems to be the case now, where the slave owners might be just like the rich are sitting back laughing at us while we're fucking deciding if the light-skinned people are having more privileges than the dark-skinned people. I mean, when you went to the doctors, how long did it take you? Now, what did the doctor say to you? Okay, let me write this down. Hold on. Like, how the fuck? Get the fuck out of here.
Come with statistics like that. That's the kind of supporting arguments that we need, as opposed to kind of moving away from the anecdotal, in my opinion, right? Because we're talking about something so big and so huge that affects everyone who is alive. I'm in the middle, you know, colorism exists for sure. I just think there's a lot of confirmation bias in our personal experiences that might drive us right to that term when it could be a number of other things.
But she's talking about how particularly darker-skinned women engage with structures, engage with power, engage with institutions. Per that exact point, there are continuing studies that show that in instances in which darker-skinned women do report intimate partner violence, domestic partner violence, bruises on their body, strangulation marks are harder for police to see, nurses to see, physicians to see, because a lot about how they are trained and the way they interact with those victims are attuned to look for those marks on lighter skin tones. And so that also impacts a lot in terms of who is seen as the victim, who gets resources, who gets proper medical attention.
Come on, bro. Okay, so you're telling me that cops are like, well, at least she's darker, so I can't see any bruises. Okay, that sounds like it's full of shit.
A lighter-skinned woman who presents like I do, who walks in with something that reads very clean cut, is likely to get more attention in an already deeply misogynistic and racist and sexist body than a woman who is much darker than I am.
So they seem to have presented a lot.
You see, I don't know if you saw it closely, but when she was talking, both the darker women looked upon her in approval. See, they were like, yes. Continue to speak. Yes. It's like, bruh, come on.
Resources, who gets proper medical attention, a lighter-skinned woman who presents.
Okay, I'm not gonna continue to just talk shit and not look any of this shit up. Let's see. What do I even look up? Darker. There was little evidence for a light skin disadvantage, but darker skin was associated with disadvantage across socioeconomic, health, and socio domains. Wow. The strongest association for SES, but even controlling for SES. Dark skin disadvantage was a predominant form of colorism. Okay, no, so there's some National Institute of Health studies that show that, yeah, seems as though the darker of the African Americans are suffering a lot more. So there does seem to be a darker skin disadvantage. Okay.
Presents like I do, who walks in with something that reads very clean cut, is likely to get more attention in an already deeply misogynistic and racist and sexist body than a woman who is much darker than I am.
So they seem to have presented a lot of evidence and studies. Are you changing your mind at all?
As well as self-lived testimony, as well as anecdotal evidence. It goes back to how you feel about yourself.
I feel like it sounds like you're saying racism is like a choice almost.
How you respond to racism is, absolutely. And I know that that's uncomfortable, and I love it. This is my wheelhouse, trust me. How you respond to racism is a choice.
I'm hearing, particularly on this side of the room, this idea that you can make an individual choice outside of the context of history, culture, politics, structures. I don't believe that personally. I think when anybody buys a certain product, styles themselves a certain way, decides to not style themselves a certain way, read a certain book, use certain words in a job interview, approach a politician, I think all of that is informed by history literally all of the time. Yeah.
We don't want to talk about anybody's individual experiences of it unless it's an experience that is affected by colorism in the way that you guys are comfortable with it. Colorism also happens on the other end. When I talk about the internalized racism and how lighter skinned voices, they don't get heard, they don't get pushed out there within the Black community, that I get eye rolls, I get, people, there's a reaction to that is very negative and not welcoming. And
I'm not in the business of denying people their lived experiences, like who am I? But I think we can also acknowledge that those things happen. Like lighter skinned people have like certain experiences where they feel invalidated because of their complexion. And we can also...
Can you acknowledge that colorism affects lighter skinned people?
There's no such thing as reverse colorism. Same way there's no such thing as reverse racism, reverse sexism, any reverse ism. That's what I believe.
Okay, that's your opinion, and I respect it. That's your opinion.
Agree in the...
You can fucking be racist or sexist against fucking anybody. There is reverse, no. Racism and sexism does not only work for one race. That's bullshit. That is completely bullshit. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. You can't just be like, no, there's no reverse sexism, there's no reverse racism. And then you have chicks that are like, oh, well, I mean, I don't really have to work. It's just like, I forgot there was one chick who was like, yeah, no, I mean, if you're not making enough money because I go shopping too much, just make more money. That's what you're supposed to do because you're the man. And it's like, okay, sure. Like, you know what I mean? Like, am I saying that it's not more often happening the other way? No. But you can be racist against anybody. You can be racist against a white person. Does that mean that in the history of time that more fucking Black people were racist against white people? No. But when a motherfucker is like, yeah, I don't trust motherfuckers because they're white. Just because they white, I don't trust them. It's like, all right, well, you're racist, and it's fine. That's fine. You can't say it doesn't exist.
In the sense that the experiences you're talking about that circulate around like all this coded language of like you're not actually Black or you're not Black enough or like, quantifying.
Which also happens with white people.
I just want to finish speaking.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to add to your point. Go ahead.
I have experienced versions of that myself, and I do not consider that to be colorism. Colorism is distinctly about a system and resources and visibility and autonomy within those systems.
Like, to add on what she said, like, about the whole bullying and things, like, that actually does happen. Like, I've been bullied just for...
So colorism is only... It only counts if it's systemic? So then if just like a random white person calls you the N-word, then he's not being racist. The system didn't come down on you. He just said something racist. But that doesn't mean that it's racist, right? That doesn't mean he's racist. Oh, no, wait, no, he is racist. That just means that, no, shit only works the way you want it to work. I would not consider that colorism. Nah, pretty sure it's a little bit colorist if you're like, yeah, I felt You're not even fucking Black, so sit down, light bright. That's not colorist. Everybody laughs and high fives. Come on, bro. That's colorist as fuck.
Well, I consider myself as brown skin, but back then I was like really dark skin, and I did lighten up like probably 2 shades, maybe 3 shades because of it.
Oh my God! Everybody just turned to hate this bitch just in one fell swoop. I don't know if you caught that.
Probably 2 shades, maybe 3 shades.
Did she just say she got lighter? Everybody light here is throwing brown paint on themselves when they get home. And this bitch just said she made herself 2 to 3 shades lighter? Oh! Oh! All right.
Because of it.
Can you tell me why you started to bleach your skin?
It's like you growing up in school, you have mainly guys making fun of your skin color and calling you charcoal, calling you dark. So growing up, you just start to feel like, oh, okay, no one likes me because of my skin color. Like, okay, I see. So that kind of does something to your head, you feel me? And also we have social media. They do praise lighter skinned women, Latinas, whatever, pale skinned women. So that kind of makes you feel like you're not desired, you feel me? So, and that's why I started bleaching my skin. That's why I started skin lightening because of it, you know? And, you know, people that do buy my stuff, like, they do tell me that it's helping them feel more confident. And I know it's kind of sad, but it's like, that's the society we live in now.
So when you say when people buy your stuff, can you talk about your business and what it is that you sell?
I sell skin bleaching cream. Pretty controversial, I know, but I do have negative comments. People saying you hate yourself, you wish you were white, this and this and that, you're a follower, like, just a lot of stuff, but I don't really like listen to it. I really don't care. I guess how society sees dark women, like we're basically the losing team. Like, who wants to be on the losing team? I felt like lighter skinned women, they were more desired and they get away with more and they have more privileges than I did. And also, I also thought that, personally, I also thought I looked prettier lighter. And for me, I honestly I don't think it's a big deal because I feel like people want to be darker and people want to be lighter. So I don't see why it's such a taboo. I'm not ashamed of it because I kind of see the hypocrisy in it.
Being a lighter person, I do experience...
Right, everybody just went from hating that one fucking bald dude who was like, man, I got told to shut the fuck up, I'm not black when I try to speak, to this chick that was like, I lighten my skin. Everybody just was like staring her with daggers. Just,
I kind of see the hypocrisy in it. Being a lighter person, I do experience a tremendous amount of privilege, and I'm not denying that of you at all. I think what upset me about the skin bleaching is that a lot of mothers do it to their daughters, and from my own experience, sometimes your parents do it to you, and you don't have the consent of the child, or someone like me could end up much lighter than I was in my childhood and kind of have an identity issue. And it's just, for me, it's a matter of consent.
And also, I feel like you have to ask yourself, what's the goal? You know, the goal is to end colorism, racism. I feel like you changing your skin tone is just feeding into the cycle. And also, I think making money off of that is very kind of shady.
And some people just personally feel like they look better lighter, just like some people feel like they look better with makeup on. Why not you just tell everybody, love your natural skin, you don't need makeup. The
Being
skin bleaching
systemically
is
oppressed from not wearing makeup, though. Whereas someone with darker skin might experience systemic racism.
It's hypocrisy, though.
That's
what I'm trying to say.
Hypocrisy.
And that's not fair.
And I also don't think we can just ignore that there's such a terrible history of racism and colorism, and that's why it's a bigger deal to people when people are bleaching their skin versus when people are putting on makeup and yeah.
I think for me, when it comes to skin bleaching, I'm a lot less interested in the personal experience and more just like, why is this a multi-billion-dollar industry? Like,
Bingo.
why is
Bingo.
Dove, you know,
Bingo.
something in the US that, you know, they just sell bar soaps here, but in Asia, they literally are selling skin bleaching. Asia and Africa, the Caribbean, like, we need to talk about how this is like a capitalist enterprise that is invested in people lightening their skin.
That's
like,
disgusting.
that to me, like, I think that's why it's important to like remember like who benefits from people lightening their skin. Like, I think the conversations, like we need to talk about class and capitalism along this as well.
So why does makeup get a pass when it's literally the same concept?
You're internalizing the idea that being lighter skinned is prettier, and I get why. Like,
no, bitch, no, shut the fuck up. Go get a job without makeup on. Yeah. Go get a job right now and wear not a drop of makeup on. Well, oh, you can. I bet I bet it's a lot easier to get a job when you have makeup than without. It's more comparable than you might think. It might not be the exact same, but they're making a point. You can't fucking discredit them. Ugh, makeup? Is there a yeah, there is a little bit. It's called, you know, sexism, right? Like, women are expected to fucking meet the male gaze, right? They're expected to look a certain way to be appealing to men. Okay, that includes makeup, that includes hair, that includes how you dress, a lot of things. The reason why men hate the body at every size thing or the healthy at every size thing, isn't that like, these women aren't really healthy, they're fat and they're hurting themselves. No, they really hate it because they're like, man, there's a lot less fuckable women out there. Even if I'm not fucking them, I want them to look like I want to fuck them, right? Like, it's all attached to something, okay? Right? It's all attached to something. So don't, like, try to dismiss her point about fucking the male gaze, or excuse me, not the male gaze, about makeup being comparable, you know, to, like, the idea of being insecure without makeup being comparable to the idea of being insecure with having darker skin.
Obviously, like, I'm very privy to the societal pressures that would drive one to...
See, and it all becomes anecdotal bullshit. It's like, well, obviously, I'm privy to the societal pressures because I'm darker skinned, so I win. Like, sit the fuck down, okay? Do you really want to be an anecdote Andy right now, or anecdote Anika? I don't know, what's a good A name? Anecdote Amy right now? No, okay? No, you're not going to use the fact that you're darker skinned to just win the debate. Sorry, not going to let that happen.
Skin bleach, so I'm not trying to judge, but...
Oh, this is Vice. They're probably going to let that happen.
But you are, though. You are, though. But you are. And we just have to own that. Let's just own it.
I don't know how I'm judging. I literally acknowledge that. I understand why, like, skin bleaching is a thing. I have, like, a lot of family that skin bleaches. I'm not sitting here pretending, like, oh, just love yourself, blah, 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 like, or even questioning that you, like, don't love yourself. Like, I understand there are so many pressures that would make someone want to bleach their skin in the first place. I just think that...
I wonder what she feels about girls getting, like, BBLs, or, like, breast implants, or, like, you know, things of that nature. Like, how does she feel about girls augmenting themselves in that way, you know? Does she have an issue with that? Is she sitting here wondering when her homie gets a BBL? Is she like, I just don't understand, like, it's like, I'm not judging, but it's like, no, you'd be like, oh, okay, get it. You know what I mean?
It is a consequence of, like, internalized, like, anti-blackness. Like, you've internalized something, and it's not to say that it's your fault. It's just, like, we live in a world, and we absorb the various messages, and we are all impressionable.
I don't have much to add, but I do think that what I would like for this conversation to do is less of focusing on, like, your personal experience of skin bleaching in the business, and more of just, like, you as someone who, like, had a lived experience.
But I, like, want to talk about my personal experience about how being a dark-skinned woman, like, affected me. But don't talk about your personal skin bleaching stuff, though. Because, like, if you bring up your personal stuff, that could, like, deflect my personal stuff. And then we all, like, you know. But I want my personal stuff to deflect your personal stuff, though. So don't. It's like, bro, what?
Experience of being darker skinned, like you saw, and like you like had like the material experience of like receiving discrimination and like feeling less desirable, and like once your skin became lighter, like it opened up opportunities and doors for you. I think that that's what this conversation needs to focus on.
Yes.
Of just like actual, like that is a very clear experience and example of colorism. Like it is real, it happens.
When
like
you're
I think
lighter, yeah. People.
What opportunities and doors did it open though? Are we talking more Instagram followers? Are we talking, like, better jobs? Like, what are we talking here specifically in terms of the door that colorism opened? Like, sure, we saw, like, a trend in terms of overall health and wealth and well-being being, you know, markedly different in terms of darker-skinned women than, you know, lighter-skinned or brown-skinned women. But my question is, like, tangibly, how is being lighter different than being darker on a day-to-day basis? Like, what would a light-skinned person not encounter that a dark-skinned person would? Would they not be called the N-word as much? I don't know. There's like these are the things that I'm trying to like understand.
People treat you differently.
Like, that's what I think this conversation really needs to center on. Why is it societally that being lighter skinned has very clear material advantages of both beauty, desirability, romantic relationships, socioeconomic.
Bro, I got curved by dark-skinned women. I got curved by light-skinned women. I got curved by brown-skinned women. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I love them all, bro. I love them all. But, like, you know, to me, you know what? No, I did see a lot of dudes that were, like, the first thing they said they wanted in terms of a woman was, yo, she gotta be light. Ooh, light-skinned. And I never understood that because I'm like, God damn. I'm like, there are some fucking gorgeous fucking dark-skinned women out there, man. Real talk. The sister in the fucking, not this sister. I'm sorry, girl. I don't like the blonde hair. Like, you're trying real hard. You're going with blonde dreads? Like, come on. You're woke and blonde? Like, get the fuck out of here. Sorry.
Opportunities, like, this is real.
But her... sis in the fucking... she's a cute little brown girl. She's probably one of the cutest ones on the fucking panel. And, like, you know, it's not in spite of her fucking dark skin. You know, part of her beauty is because of her dark skin.
Who here has had pressure from their mother or their family or have heard those messages from within the household about colorism, and who wants to share that experience?
So I think one of the experiences of colorism that has stuck with me, and I know that, like, my mother, of course, like, she said this offhandedly, but, you know, as a child, like, that's something that's rooted in you. But I remember one time and she was just like, you don't need to marry somebody that's, like, your shade or darker. Like, your kids are going to come out too dark. And I just remember being like, damn, like, is there something wrong with me?
Moving here after 9/11, there was a huge push, I think, in the Middle Eastern community to look as white as possible. So it wasn't necessarily that it was the beauty standard, but rather...
You see how she gets really annoyed? She's like, we're honestly not talking about the Middle East right now. Like, go fucking blow up a tower somewhere else. Like, I appreciated what you were saying before when you were defending my point. But, like, honestly, you want to really make this about, like, terrorists. And, like, we're not, like, thinking about terrorists right now. So, like... you know what? I'm just going to hold my tongue because, like, you know what? If I say something, I might get fucking, you know, like, they might not like me anymore, bitch.
A way to not get
Her
hate
whole
crime
demeanor
or to
changed,
kind of
bruh.
stay under the radar. And so my mom would tell me things like, tell people you're Russian and things like that. So kind of like keeping a proximity to whiteness was seen as a safer idea.
Hella colorism. That's colorist as fuck, and it didn't have anything to do with black people. So how is that? Is that still systemic? I don't know. Is it like, oh, this is still systemic? Middle Easterns aren't technically super dark. I mean, I don't know. But there is a sense of colorism, especially after 9/11. I guess one could argue that was racism, but they weren't really coming after a certain race. They went for Iraqi, Iran, anybody. Afghanistan. If you were from Afghanistan, anywhere, they came after you.
Ella?
For me, in my family dynamic, it didn't come down to skin as so much as hair politics. So my hair, when I was a child, was very thick and straight, like a tapestry of hair, and then it got curly with puberty. And as my hair got curly, my mom, without discussion, stepped in with the executive decision that we would be straightening my hair. There was an assessment made on me as a child and then as a younger woman of like, oh, like you're almost there. Like if we can control your hair, if we can get your hair a certain texture, you could be mistaken for white. And that reflects well on us.
Anybody else want to share their experience of colorism from their families?
When I was younger, my little brothers were much like lighter than me. So I think at a very early...
That's what I'm saying. One of the most beautiful, well-spoken, although we disagree, but on the panel, and that is, again, because of her skin, not in spite of. Yeah. And that's coming from a big fucking hairy gremlin over here.
Early age, I understood that society ascribed like lightness to like femininity and like darkness to masculinity. I think a lot of what I struggled with when I was younger was like blaming myself and like not like being confused as to why I was being treated differently. So when I was old enough to understand what colorism was and how many systems are at play, and that it really has nothing to do with me and everything to do with how people like are conditioned. I think it was liberating for me. That really helped.
But see, do you see how she took all the onus off of herself? And I'm not saying it's your fault that you're brown or that you're a certain color. It's your fault that, you know, no. But you can take steps to make your life better instead of just saying, oh, it's not my fault. It's the system. Fuck it. Right? Like, instead of just take that responsibility and say, well, the system is fucking me, but I can do X, Y, and Z. Right? The system is fucking me because of this, but I can do this, this, and this, right? Like, you know, a lot of the times you see, like, a lot of times getting in shape is, like, one of the things that people start to do in order to get their life together. Getting in shape, getting their finances in order, stop drinking, stop fucking doing these extra vices. Like, these are all things that you can do to increase your fucking, what is it? I don't want to say mental fortitude. I mean, mental fortitude is something that they increase. But, like, overall health and well-being, right? And then that, in turn, makes you, you know, better for whatever you want to do. It might be get another job. It might be get another partner. It might be fucking just, like, overall get healthy in general, right? A lot of times people get in shape after they get, like, a really terminal illness. You know, they start exercising as they can. Sometimes they don't. A lot of the times they do. It depends on the kind of mentality that you have about it.
To me, start thinking of myself as beautiful.
For me, many would probably assume that my parent like pushed it on me, but it's definitely the opposite. Like my mom, she always tells me that I'm beautiful. Like even when I was darker, like she always told me I was beautiful. She never said I had to use cream or use anything to lighten my skin. I just got influenced by the media, honestly.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. My mom, she really embraced my hair, told me it was beautiful, and encouraged me to grow it. But I just remember watching like TV, Disney Channel, and all of these things, and asking, why can't my hair look like that? Why can't it be straight? So for me, it's the same. I saw it more through the media, but I was still getting that support from my family, that, you know, that encouragement.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I think, you know, what's permeating for me is like information and accessibility to that. I grew up in the Bronx, so like you know, people are around people that look like them for almost their whole lives, and so they don't, it's like so embedded that way. It's so embedded, like they stay in the projects forever. And, you know, I managed to leave, like I went out of the hood to get an education, and, you know, and I already didn't look like them because of my fair skin. I'll go back, and I've been having these conversations, these kind of like esoteric seeming conversations that people that I grew up with have never had before.
I think that's interesting. I'm sorry, I gotta be the odd man out again, I guess. What I'm hearing is that because you had a different experience, you think that the people who stayed home, because people do stay home, they don't leave their hometowns, you think that they've been held back because of their race?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. No, that's not what I said. Racial experience will change depending on where you're located, I think, is all I'm saying. And so people might not have as much of an awareness of how they are different from others if they're in a homogeneous environment. So it isn't until they experience something different and are in an environment of diversity and of different experience that they see, oh wait, maybe I am of marginalized experience. And then they bring that back, and, you know, they can try and pretend like they never saw that, but, you know, and try and integrate back into their home life, but that's impossible. You can't unsee it.
So we've talked a lot about.
Let me bring that back. Let me see.
Environment of diversity and of different experience that they see, oh wait, maybe I am of marginalized experience. And then they bring that back, and, you know, they can try and pretend like they never saw that, but, you know.
So she's saying that, like, when she was basically back home with everybody that she knew, everybody that was pretty much the same, she didn't understand how colorism was affecting her life. But after she got an education outside of where she normally grew up, and she was able to experience the world that other people lived and how other people were living, and she was able to speak to other people and see how they were living their lives, and then she could see that the difference that they were experiencing, she had to attribute it to colorism. Okay, I think I see her point to a certain extent.
And try and integrate back into their home life, but that's impossible. You can't unsee it.
So we've talked a lot about some of the systems that contribute to colorism, but let's talk about the media and the cultural aspect.
I noticed there's an oversaturation of lighter skinned biracial women who are sort of meant to be the representatives of blackness on TV. I also think representation definitely can't fix everything, right? But I think seeing more dark-skinned women in the media, like Lupita Nyong'o, who's just gorgeous, I was like, well, if she's beautiful, it's why do I think dark skin is ugly? And I think it becomes frustrating when you feel like you constantly have to wait for representation. Everyone will get representation before you.
And even when we are presented, we're presented as ghetto and loud and we're not meant to be in a relationship. We always stress our partner out. We're annoying. We complain a lot, and it just sucks. Like I was saying, it does do something to your head. And I personally feel like black women are at the bottom of the barrel. Nobody wants black women. Nobody desires black women. They basically think we're trash.
Who the fuck? I literally feel like I'm nobody sitting right here. Bro, all I do is speak on fucking the gorgeousness and fucking eloquence and beauty of black women, bro. But again, that's only me.
And that gets to your head, especially when you have a whole bunch of, even celebrities, black men, wanting to be with white women or lighter skinned women. It makes you feel like you're just not wanted. And it makes you feel like you want to join the hype.
We have made a lot of progresses in the campaigns. You do see a wider range of shades, but why is that all of a sudden a trend? You know what I mean? I'm happy it's happening, but I feel like this is something that should have been happening, And also, a lot of the time you can put these wide ranges of shades in front of the lens, but my question is, when I show up to set, what's the crew giving, Where there are people of color helping formulate the formulas of the product, It's so much deeper than just what you see in front of the lens.
I do worry sometimes, like Isaiah said, there will be, and again, I use this word very intentionally, moments, but it often gets translated back into the culture as a trend. Trends are not lasting, trends are not legislation, trends are not resources, trends are not restructuring of ideas and resources.
Let's bring it back to social media for a second. What do you think first when you hear the word cultural appropriation?
Cultural appropriation to me is not braids that are being stolen or something, or things that are, people. If somebody can do braids and they want to do braids, they can do braids. That's not cultural appropriation to me. It might be cultural appreciation, and I think that that's something that is looked over a lot. I think that cultural appropriation comes in place where, like political parties will use struggles of black people to get laws passed or something like that. That, to me, is cultural appropriation.
When it comes to cultural appropriation, the reason why, for example, indigenous peoples of the Americas don't want you wearing a headdress is because what has happened in the last 500 years, literally acts of genocide, being put in boarding schools, literally being killed and discriminated against and experiencing real harm for being able to wear their cultural traditions. We're talking about the black hair textures discrimination legally because it happens, because there are for example, schools, workplace.
Yeah, you have to have the audacity to sit there with blonde hair on your head talking about, cultural appropriation of black people. It's man, how many black blonde people do you know, naturally blonde? I don't know any. I've lived my whole life. I don't know any natural blonde black people. There's naturally blonde white people, though. Shit ton of them. So, I don't know.
Is like various forms of employment that say that like you as a black person having this black hairstyle will not be accepted. Like we're not okay with that. And so when I see a white girl wear Fulani braids or type of braids, whatever type of braids, I'm just like, you're never gonna experience in the way that like a black person is for wearing their own cultural traditions, like real like socioeconomic discrimination. Like, I don't know. I just think that I'm over it.
I kind of wanted to touch on like the idea of cultural appreciation. And for me,
somebody call her big ass out for wearing fucking like blonde? Ever happened like fucking? Okay, but you could dye your hair blonde. You're not appropriating white culture by doing that. Oh, you think your blonde hair looks good with blah blah? Well, maybe the chick thought her Armani or Imani or whatever fucking braids you were talking about, maybe those looked good for her style. Like, who are you to say, oh, you're culturally appropriating the hair style that somebody wants to choose to wear? I don't know. It just doesn't seem... Like, it seems like there's a lot of other shit to be worried about than what people are wearing, right?
I do love when people take certain aspects of my culture and when they credit it to mine. And I think oftentimes we can see on TikTok and other medias, like sometimes white people act like they thought of an idea that's like historically existed. And that to me is not appreciation anymore.
The line for me is just between appropriation and appreciation is benefiting. You know what I mean? If you do something that a culture has been teased about, put down about, and then you put it on now that it's a trend and you're benefiting from it, you're getting these followers, you're able to raise your prices because of that. All of these things are really detrimental and they're kind of heartless.
With these platforms that are new and are emerging, the same dynamics are mirrored back to us, whether that is racism, colorism, misogyny, Islamophobia. When we have new platforms like
this... Is it the eye things?
They are not bigger than these things. They do not exceed these things. They literally just mirror back these same realities, these same problems, these same dynamics.
If not amplify them.
And if you're looking for racism, you're going to find it. If you're looking for colorism, you're going to find it. And I think, and that's not, I'm not trying to negate anybody's lived experience, but I think that there's also a thing in life that if you're looking for something, you can speak it into existence.
Yeah, so to speak to that, let's say me and Kelvin were in a group chat with a non-black person and they sent a gift that could be considered a black gift. I think it's, and I accuse them of digital blackface, but he doesn't. And so, pause it there because you guys were saying, like, just because something's happening or, like, if we have different feelings on it, whose point of view determines if something is actually happening or not, or if we're still in the realm of opinion and feeling?
I think as a non-black person, if even one black person told me something's not okay, I would listen to them. It could be 1 out of 100. I would really...
You don't think that's dangerous? I'm sorry to cut you off, but you don't think that's dangerous?
That's insane.
Because you're giving me the power to determine how you interact with...
But it's really
people.
not that much power to not use a gift that's not meant for me.
Who said it's not meant for you? If we create content as black people, we're not posting it on a website where only black people can get into. We're sharing it with you. I think people get offended when people misuse...
Damn, fucking homie came in quiet. He was like, yeah. Then he came in with that, yada, get him.
And the content that we have and abuse it, but I can't tell you what gift. I mean, if it has the N-word in it real big, I'm gonna take offense to that, but you already knew that. You already knew that. But if it's like a niche, popular black person who does comedy and you post their gift, I'm not gonna say, well, hey, slow down. Like, I don't have that kind of power to tell someone that, and it's dangerous.
I feel like you're like devaluing people's like feelings. You know what I mean? It might not offend you, but let's say you're in a group chat and it bothered him. Why can't you just acknowledge that it bothers him and not you? You know what I mean? Some people have different feelings on different things.
Well, but here's the thing: simply disagreeing does not mean I'm not acknowledging your feelings.
Okay.
We can disagree because I'm sorry. I'll just finish real quick.
Yeah.
That's, oh my God! See, that's the thing, bruh. That is that hit it very hard. You can disagree with somebody, and that is still acknowledging how they fucking feel. You're not disregarding them as a person. you're disagreeing with what the fuck they're saying. Okay, you can disagree with somebody and how they feel and still respect their life and still respect their struggle, but disagree with their overall premise. Okay? Like, you can. And again, you're not disregarding someone's fucking you're not disregarding somebody's life experience. Okay? But you can't allow one person's life experience to fucking dictate how you view the world, just like you can't allow one person's fucking offense to dictate how you tell fucking jokes, right? You're gonna get people offended. I've been called racist. I've been called fucking everything, homophobic. I've been called fucking like everything you can fucking think of, okay, because of the jokes that I make, right? Is that ever gonna make me change how I tell my jokes, how I do my comedy? No, it's not. It's really not. Okay, like, I don't care. Period. So, and I'm just gonna keep doing this shit the way I want to do it. Let's get it going.
So the event of digital blackface is determined by the viewer.
I think in general, like GIFs, like reaction memes, there's a sort of like flattening of people because it's like we only know that person in that context to make us laugh. But I think with like digital blackface or whatever you want to call it, there's the added like aspect of like historically black people being used as like comedic relief, like whether if you think back to like actual blackface shows and like white people painting themselves like pitch black and like doing things that they think will make other people laugh, like different like black stereotypes. So I definitely think like there's an aspect to that.
Destiny, how about you? How social media affected your view of colorism?
Like with social media, light-skinned people are important and they're pretty and this and that. And that's the same thing I want to feel. So, and there's a lot of benefits that come along with it, and I want the same benefits. And I'm be honest, I want the same benefits. Like, I don't care.
How do you feel hearing that, Maya?
Interesting, you asked me. First thing that came to mind was thinking about Lil' Kim and how like so many people in 2022 be like, oh, you look so good when you were darker skinned. I'm just like, but y'all treating her like shit. Sorry for cussing, but it's the truth. Like, she literally said like, all the people I was dating would leave me for white European girls. Like, y'all like talked about my nose, you talked about my features, featureism, and just she wanted an easier life. So I'm just like, I think about.
Bitch just say featureism? Oh no.
Featureism, and just she wanted an easier life. So I'm just like, I think about like, why are there so many material benefits to being lighter? Also, how do we make a world where darker skinned people don't have to do this, like don't have to. Like, I think that I'm interested in creating a world or like moving towards a world where we don't have like these very clear like straight up pigmentocracy, like straight up like hierarchies of shade that are like rooted in anti-blackness, that like are influenced by white supremacy, all of these things like that are interconnected with one another.
I really feel like it's never gonna change. Like, we want it to change. I want it to change. We hope that it'll change, but is it really gonna change? I really don't think so.
What do you define as change?
Like, change as like...
You want people to...
It's fair game for also dark-skinned people. Like, we all are on an equal level. And I feel like that's never going to happen.
Let's talk about dating for a second. And has colorism...
Okay, I'm done.